you check the children. Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Morgan.
And we are here to review the brand new limited theatrical released horror movie called Tarot. This is one that doesn't have a lot of buzz behind it, honestly. You hadn't even heard of it until I told you about it today. Thank you for jumping on this review with me. I appreciate it. But yeah, guys, this movie is all about a tarot card reading gone wrong. That's the long and short of it. And as always, we'll do our reviews talking about our overall thoughts, then the story, the acting, the filmmaking, the effects, all of that good stuff in turn. And so I'm just going to lead off saying I enjoyed this movie for what it was. It was nothing groundbreaking. What they did, we've seen done dozens of times previously, but they did it well, at least. So they executed well things we've seen many, many times before. I think what this movie is going to do is be to the younger generation what some of the earlier movies were to me growing up. You know, I think this is a very good gateway horror movie, going from, like, Five Nights was easing children into it. This is, I think, kind of the next step past Five Nights. No, I mean, you know, because Five Nights didn't have any gore, really. This has some gore. It's still PG-13, but it's a meaner PG-13 than Five Nights at Freddy's was. So I enjoyed the film. Again, nothing groundbreaking. The characters are puddle deep, but the monsters, and numerous ones at that, I appreciated and enjoyed the design of and the execution of. So overall, I enjoyed the film. How about you?
I don't know if they were necessarily puddle deep. I think there was a little more depth.
Okay.
It could be seen that way for sure. Like because they are just sort of like whitewashed in, like in a precursory way.
They're brushed over pretty quick.
But they definitely, and that's the whole point of the, I don't know what I can say and what I can't say.
Well, just don't spoil things. So just what are your overall thoughts?
It was fun.
Fun. Okay.
It was fun. It was fun. It had some fun jump scares. The monsters were very well done. Like, you know, like if it was CGI or practical or whatever, it was beautiful. The story itself was reasonable. The acting was great, and I didn't really have a whole lot of complaints. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, it was so scary for me, but that's not here or there because I'm not everyone. But it definitely is worth seeing.
Okay.
I guess.
All right.
For anybody. Oh, wow.
So overall, we both enjoyed it well enough. Again, I don't know if this is one that you need to rush out to the theater to see. I do think that you can wait for it to come home to streaming, because again, it's limited theatrical release. It's only open in a few theaters out here, not widely released. So I don't know if that's a lack of confidence in the film, or if it's extra confidence in a film that they weren't going to release theatrically. If they were only going to do it digitally, but then they're like, well, it's good enough, let's give it a try, then great. I will say there was only 4 people, including us, in the theater to watch this movie. So
during the time that we saw it.
Yeah, we saw it at 4 p.m., which was the very first showing of the film.
Right.
On a Thursday. It's the first wide opening showing of the film, yeah.
I think that it would be good theatrically released. Like, it would have a good reception.
Yeah. Okay.
It was good enough that, like, your newer horror fans, your younger horror fans, your meeker horror fans would all appreciate it. Your more seasoned vets can appreciate the nods to things that, I mean, I saw them. I checked off a list of, okay, I see this, I see this, I see what you did there. But it didn't take away from the originality, which I really appreciate, because I'm so tired of remakes and reimagining and reboots. So for something that, even though they take elements of other movies, they made something new. And I do appreciate it. I do think the title's misleading. I'm just gonna say, I won't talk anymore about that, but I am gonna say it's a burning thing for me. The title's misleading, but it's a really good movie.
I mean, the title is tarot, and tarot cards are involved. It might not have been used all the way correctly, in your opinion, but it did represent the film. There were tarot cards that were used in the reading. So, but I will say that, overall story-wise, it's fine. It's not very deep. It doesn't go crazy. It's like a lot of other movies. It's kind of the Final Destination ilk.
I saw that.
Something happens
I
where,
saw that.
in this case, a bunch of kids are given readings via tarot cards, and then they kind of all have to face whatever the final card was for them in some way, shape, or form. So that's as much as I want to say without spoiling anything. But that was enough for me because it was kind of cool. It's nice that it's not just one kind of entity through the whole film. We got a bunch of different cool things to look at, a bunch of cool creatures. They do show that there are multiple things in the trailer. I'm not going to go further than that for fear of spoiling, but I will say that everything that we got shown was cool. They were all designed well, and they were all executed well.
Yes,
now,
absolutely.
When we get to the effects, I'll talk about practical versus CG, because they did something interesting here, where it was mostly practical, but they did a lot of, and the gremlin's down, they did a lot of CG manipulation. As far as movement goes, but there's not a lot of actual CG constructs in the film, it worked well to the film's advantage. Again, I think practical is always more interesting than CG, and they did keep it practical. So we'll get there as well. So we both enjoyed the story, right? And then you enjoyed the acting, you said, as well.
Yeah.
No one took you out of it? Because it wasn't like A-tier acting, but no one took me out of the film, personally.
Right. I mean, there were some characters that weren't necessarily as developed as the other ones necessarily, and it kind of adds to the camp.
Hence the puddle deep thing I said earlier.
I mean, it adds to the camp that there's a certain amount of just like silliness.
Yeah.
So there were a character or two where you're like, either you don't really get any sort of pulse from them at all, or what you get from them is just sort of silly.
Gotcha.
But overall, I mean, I think everyone did a good job.
Okay.
With their job.
Yeah.
And it was all effective, so.
That's fine. There were just a lot of tropes that we've seen, the wise old woman that knows more about everything than we do and stuff like that,
That was random.
But at least it wasn't such a cornerstone of the film as it is normally in movies like these. So that aside, again, acting-wise, everyone acquitted themselves fine. No one took me out of the film. It's just a lot of them didn't have a lot of background to play off of as actors. They had to deal with the script they were given. Now, filmmaking wise, I thought it was fine. I don't think that there was any like particular shots or anything that I was like, ooh, that's really creative. Again, it was pretty straightforward in its dealing. There were some interesting, back and forth cuts, and they were messing with the usual, show this person, show an empty hallway, show this person, show an empty hallway, show this person, but the thing's behind them now. It was kind of that sort of thing. So
I felt like it was a mixed media thing. Like, there was definitely going back to touching on stealing elements and touching on different movies. There were different things that would happen. So this entity might act this way, and then you have this other thing that happens over here. And so the interactions were all a little bit individualized. And that was fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, there was a point in time where I was sort of like, this is weird. But then, like, when you get to the end and you have the overarch, you're like, okay, actually, this is really cool. Like, it was cool that it wasn't like everything acts very static. Like,
no, that's
so it's
true.
Expected. It was fun.
There was some creativity, and honestly, there was one shot. I'll try and mime it for you, but it was after a show that everyone's very familiar with involving that up on the wall.
Yeah.
And the shot that ends is an open up shot from the inside, and I was like, okay, that's a cool way to reveal it if we can't see the gore of it. You know what I mean? So right after
I have
the
problems with that scene. But
okay, fair enough. But
that's for off camera.
So yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. But there's interesting stuff throughout, at least. But just not like there's a couple of interesting angles, but it didn't really blow me away cinematography wise. Sound design was fine. I didn't really take much note of the music in this, honestly. It's not that it was bad. I just didn't really take much note of it.
I didn't either. Actually, now that you say that, like, I don't
There was a couple
Even-
of needle drops, right? A couple of needle drops for music and
guess.
stuff that
I
we
mean, the only,
like actual songs with words, but score-wise,
right.
not a lot
I was
to,
gonna say
to
that there's
recall.
only one scene that I can actually like recall the sound
The ambient
for.
music, okay.
And I don't know if you're picking up on what I'm putting down, but there's only one scene that you pick up on the sound for.
Oh yeah, okay, I know what you're saying. Yep,
And yeah, so
okay, that's fair. So sometimes the sound design stood out, but for the most part it was serviceable, right?
Yeah.
There was nothing bad about it, but
No.
it didn't really stand out, so to speak. So that leads us to the final thing, which is the effects. And this is where I wanted to kind of follow up on what I was saying earlier, where the creatures, the entities, they do all appear to be practical entities, but digital and editing manipulation is used for
Yeah.
motion.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So again, a lot of that is editing, and in fact, you do see in the trailer that one of them is the fool, and it's kind of like a jester character, and the way his face would change, I thought that was cool, but that was editing, right? That's not actual CG morphing on screen. That was
even
just
the
editing.
way his
You know what I mean?
body moves is
It was all
is
editing as well. Yeah. So
but it's a practical, like he's literally a
Yeah.
dude in a suit doing.
and they just have him in different angles, right?
Yeah,
all over
yeah.
the rooms and stuff. So that's the thing. It's practical effects that they manipulate with editing for the most part, and a little bit digitally here and there, but not much. Not much. So that's, I appreciated that. I always appreciate a film that's going to go for practical effects over CG effects.
Right, and I mean there were also other effects that
Mm-hmm.
were more minor, like when things lit up per se.
Sure. Sure.
And that was fine.
Yeah.
Everything was fine.
Well, I will say there was some relatively rough CG. No, I'm mixing that up with another thing I'm going to review in just a minute. So don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. I'm going to review the season of Chucky, and there was an effect that I almost complained about here, but that was a different thing. So, all right. Yeah, no, so for the most part, the effects were all solid here. There was gore, but it was, again, being a PG-13 movie, it's kind of after gore or
gore?
to the side gore. Well, gore in so much as there were some blood spurts that we saw as things were happening to
Oh!
people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, not
Yeah.
a ton of gore being PG-13. But again, they did some things, like this was a darker PG-13 than a lot of the PG-13 horror out there, in my opinion.
Yes.
So, I've got to give it at least that.
Yeah.
But
I would say show it to your older 13s.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
elder 13s, if
again,
you will.
this is of the ilk. This would have felt very home at Blumhouse, in my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
because it's the kind of thing that we've seen dozens of times before, but they did it pretty well, right? And that's kind of what Blumhouse's MO is most of the time. Some of the time now, it's just kind of not great, but for the most part, this feels like it's of that ilk. It's going to hit the younger audiences that haven't seen the breadth of horror movies that we've seen that this one is drawing off of, right? So they think that this movie is going to have invented all of these different scares when in fact...
But I also
you know.
think that some of the more seasoned horror fans can appreciate to say, hey, I recognize this and this and this and this. It's fun for that. And it's also just fun overall. It's a fun experience. It's not like, oh, I just wasted 2 hours. Like, no. It's original enough, even though it whispers other things. It definitely has. It's almost like a wine, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it has like notes.
It has
of
notes
this
of other
and notes
things,
of
yeah.
that. But all in all, it's a fun ride. Like, I'm not unhappy that I saw it.
No, and it's only an hour and 32 minutes. And with credits, that's like an hour and 25 minutes. So, you know, it's not a long commitment. You're in and you're out. I think that actually might have been a disservice to it as far as character development goes. I feel like if we'd gotten another 10, 12 minutes, we could have put a little more development into characters. But yeah, it might not have been ultimately necessary.
It wasn't
Yeah,
necessary.
so-
And this is definitely a one and done.
Yeah. It's not
Like,
one I'm
it's
going to
just-
be revisiting. No.
No, well, I mean,
I think it's
can-
worth seeing once. I think
I
the younger
can-
crowd will revisit it.
Actually, I think that there's lots of reasons to watch it again.
Oh, okay.
That it's
Fair
a
enough.
rewatchable movie. There are little things, little details that happen throughout the movie that I was sort of like, once I noticed it, I was like, wait, I think I saw that before. Does this happen every time? I need to slow it down. I need to rewind it. I need to watch it again. So it has a rewatchability for sure. I just mean that, like, it's a one and done. Like, I don't see there being a sequel. And if there was...
No. Well, there might be. It depends.
It would be horrific. And it shouldn't happen. Don't make a sequel.
They might. I mean,
It's good as is. It's a one and done.
This is of the
fully
ilk
wrapped
of, like,
up.
Truth or Dare and things like that, where younger audiences are going to appreciate it more than older audiences that have seen a lot of it before. But I have to acknowledge that it is a well-done version of these things. It's not the best way these things have been done before, but they did it well. So
Yeah.
So there you go, guys. I think that's going to cover our review of Tarot, or Tarot, as one person says
Tarot!
early in the film. Tarot cards. They're like, I think it's tarot. But yeah, so thank you very much for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Morgan.
And remember, stay scared.
Hey guys, like what you see here? Join us on Patreon for some exclusive content. Stay scared.